Great. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining me today at this Introduction to Mendeley workshop. What I'm going to do is go through this set of slides. I hope everybody can see it. Please let me know in the chat box if you can't. It has lots of screenshots of Mendeley so that you can see exactly what it looks like. And there will be kind of instructions about how you can use it, how to get the best out of this particular piece of referencing software. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along in the chat box, and I will answer those as we go. There will be time at the end as well for any questions, and there might be time for a bit of a run through of the actual live desktop version of Mendeley. So today what I'm going to be talking about is why it's useful to use Mendeley as referencing software, getting started, so what it looks like, the web version and the desktop version, how you can register and download Mendeley onto your desktop, onto your computer, how you can install plugins for Microsoft Word and for your web browsers, how you can add records to Mendeley of different resources like journals, book titles, articles, websites, that kind of thing. How you can create citations in Microsoft Word from Mendeley, so using the plugin in Word to generate citations and reference lists. Some extra features of it that I think are particularly useful, and then, like I say, some time for remaining questions and answers at the end. So yeah, I wanted to give a bit of a background about Mendeley. It is a piece of free software. You don't have to pay to use it. This is an example of what your work can look like when you have added these citations into your text. So you'll see in the brackets there are names there like Wilson, Teramoto and Micken, and the years and the pages. I will say that the screenshots that I've used are not in the QMU Harvard style, so there'll be commas in places and that kind of thing that they shouldn't be. So don't use this as an example of what it should look like exactly. It's not the right referencing style for QMU Harvard. Obviously, we use QMU Harvard and psychology uses APA. You might also be required to use different referencing styles depending on what courses you're taking. So it's always worth checking in QMU's write-in site to make sure that you're referencing correctly. I will also say that the functionality of Mendeley and any referencing software at the moment, because of the special style that QMU has, it's not always going to be 100% accurate. So much as the computer can do a lot of this for you, you should always go through and check yourself that it's done it accurately and consistently. And the most important thing is to make sure that it's been done consistently within your work. So getting started with Mendeley. There are, as I say, two different versions of it. There's a web version, so you can look at it in your web browser, whether that's Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox or other browsers. You can start off on the website, so you need to create your account on the website in the first place. But you can also use it as an online version. You can import references from online databases. You can use it to work in groups. It's a good backup for your desktop version. So I'll show you, there's a sync button on the desktop version that means that everything you put onto your desktop piece of software gets uploaded to the cloud and saved, and you can refer to that if you're working on a different computer or on your phone. You can look at your references and your different files and records on the web version as well as the desktop version. The desktop version is particularly useful for importing files and records. It's really handy because it's very simple to import references in a lot of different ways. I'll show you the various different ways you can do that. You can set it to watch a folder. So if you have a particular folder on your computer that you save files into, so PDFs, for example, of journal articles, then you can get it to watch that folder for you, and I'll show you how that works. So it will automatically update and import those into your reference manager. And as I say, you can use it to insert references into your word processor, so into Microsoft Word. The web and desktop versions, you can use them both to create folders and groups, and you can reorganize your references within them. So you can have one big bunch of PDFs, for example, loads of references and journal articles and all kinds of different sources. You can then have little folders that duplicate those records. It's not one or the other. You can have a set of references for one particular assignment, for example, and you can use that to import into your work. So where you will start with Mendeley is registering for an account and downloading it. As I say, it's free to use, and you can get to it at www.mendeley.com. The homepage looks a bit like this, and you're looking for the red button that says create a free account. So you sign up with your details. You can sign up with a personal email address or your QMU email address. But what I will say is, if you ever forget your password and you've set it up with a QMU email address, when you have graduated, and if you still continued using Mendeley after you've graduated, you might not be able to access your password reset if you can't get into your QMU emails anymore. So it's just worth thinking into the future a bit about that. So once you have gone onto the Mendeley website, there will be, as you can see underneath here, underneath the create a free account button, you can see it says download for free on Mac, and then there's a Windows icon, and then a couple of other icons. I think that's an Android one on the right hand side. So you download the right version for you, install it on your computer, and get set up that way, and then log in with the free account that you've signed up with. So once you're logged in, this is what Mendeley desktop looks like. I hope you can see that okay. You can then go to tools along the top toolbar, where you can install the Microsoft Word plugin. You need to not have Microsoft Word open whilst you do that, but it's very, very fast. So you just click that button and that makes the plugin available. So it's connected Mendeley then to your Microsoft Word. Just give you a bit of a tour around this particular screen. So as you can see on the main panel there in the middle, you've got like a grid of different references. So that's all the metadata, so the information about the different sources. So you've got a column for authors and the title of the piece of information, the year that it was published, where it was published. So for example, if it's a journal, then which journal, and what date you've added it. You can, like a spreadsheet, you can get that particular grid to be in the order of when it was published, or alphabetically by author. So at the moment it looks like that one, the screenshot is by author. On the left hand side then there's a panel. You can filter it at the bottom there by authors if you were just looking specifically, but you can also filter it by where it was published. So that grey box where it says filter by authors, you can set that. There are different options, and you can filter by different things. The box up at the top on the left hand side has lots of different things in it. The default view is all documents, so whenever you load up Mendeley, it will tend to show you straight away your entire library of everything you've ever pulled into there ever. But the one below it is recently added, so it might show you what you've added in the last week. Favorites, so as you can see in the main screen, there are lots of little white star icons next to those green dots and grey dots. You can favorite those so that they then go into your favorites panel there. Ones that need review, for example, are ones you've added and you haven't checked that the information about the sources is accurate and correct. So that's a good way of keeping on top of just making sure that everything you've pulled into there, the information about it is complete. If you do write for publication, you can have a section on your own publications. And then below here, you can add new folders. So if you had an assignment, for example, you could add this new folder that was Essay 1 module, whatever module code, and you can pull across from that main panel. You can drag those into folders so that you've got a little set of references as you go. For example, if you wanted to have a little mini folder of articles that you wanted to read for an assignment that you thought you might use to reference. So yeah, that's a bit of an intro. Oh, and also there's a search bar at the top, so that's really useful. You can type in words like authors or keywords. So if if you were doing a study on, I don't know, something to do with children, you could search for children, and every time that word had featured in the articles that you've pulled into Mendeley, it would find those results for you. So there are lots and lots of different features about it. I think it's quite a powerful tool, and it can be really handy for just making your life a bit easier, keep all your things organized. Searching things is really useful, and as I'll show you, there are some really nice features of it that make it not only useful for automatically generating citations and references, but for using as a study tool and a research tool. So I'll point some of those out. Okay, so this is a screenshot of what it looks like when you set up the web importer. So you need to go onto the Mendeley website for that. And the web importer is a little plugin that will be installed into your web browser, so that when you're on a website, so for example, if you're on the website for an ebook or a journal article or a database, or even just something on the web like a news article that you're reading on the BBC website, or any kind of website, you can click that web importer button and use that to add a record to your Mendeley desktop and the web version. So you can more easily add references. It's kind of semi-automates the process for you. So there are lots of different ways that you can add records, and by records, as I say, that is like the record, the details of a particular journal article or a particular book or book chapter, ebook, a particular document or file that you might find online. It can be a website, it can be a radio program, a TV show, a film. There are so many different kinds of resource format that you can add. That basically it's anything you use as a source for your assignments or your research. So there are lots of ways to do it. One particularly handy thing that you can do is export multiple references at a time. So if you run a database, the example here being ProQuest Central, if you searched for something like, say, social media, you could get thousands and thousands of results. You might want to then filter that down by date of publication, particular like topics. So use more search results, more keyword searches to narrow down your search results. But if you then had, for example, 10, 12, 20, 50 articles that you thought would be useful for you and you wanted to add those references to your Mendeley, you tick them in the search results, and then there's a save option in ProQuest. It will look different depending on the platform and database that you're searching. So this is just an example. But what it looks like on ProQuest is you've got an option to save it as a RIS file. So that's RIS. And as you can see circled here, the examples it gives for what tools that's useful for are EndNote and Citavi. They're two different types of reference manager. Mendeley also uses RIS files, so you can export them as a RIS, save them wherever you want to, whether that's on your desktop or in your documents, and then within Mendeley Desktop, the software itself, you will click on the Add Files tool here at the top right, and then it will ask you to select the file that you want to add. So you find that file, and then it will automatically pull all of those references in an organized way with as much detail as the database had. So all that information about the author and the journal article title and what journal it was published in, that should be present for you automatically. So that's a really nice, efficient way of getting multiple references into Mendeley in one fell swoop. You can also do it manually though. So if you had something that you say had a print book on your desk in front of you and you wanted to just add the details about this book that you were going to cite or reference, you would then click the same add a record or add files option on the menu there at the top left and select add entry manually. And then it will ask, a little box will pop up and it will ask you to add details, as many details as you can. And it will provide you with the option of selecting what kind of a source it is. So whether that's a book or a book chapter or a journal article or a website or a piece of legislation or whatever. It's important to choose the closest source you can to the type of source that it actually is, because there are different fields depending on what kind of a source. So for example, it might not ask you for a URL or a DOI if you are adding the manual entry of a print book, because that's not available online. Whereas if you were adding an entry for a website, it will ask you for the URL. So it's important to add as much detail as you can, but it doesn't have to be a case of adding every single possible detail about it, just enough that's required in the references and citations. You can also import PDFs by selecting the files. So again, if you click on add files there, you can add the actual files themselves. You can highlight as many as you want from a document. So for example here, the screenshot is showing that there is a folder called thesis sources, and you can add multiples of those from that particular folder and add the PDF files by selecting them. You can do all files next to each other. So as you can see, there's a run of half a dozen there. If you click the top one and hold shift down, I'm talking about using a Windows computer, it might be different on Mac. If you hold shift down and then select the bottom one, it will select you that set of them. If you click one file and you want not the one below it, but the one below that, and then the one 3 below that, if you click it and then hold Control on your keyboard and you just click the ones that you do want, and then you can click open. You can also use Control A to select all of the folders, all of the files in a folder and add all of those. That generally, that works if you weren't aware, for when you're doing anything with file management on a computer. So it's quite handy. Okay, so my computer's frozen. Just give it a chance to move on to the next slide. I'm hoping it catches up with me in a second. Okay, so it's important to check the details for accuracy, like I say. So as you can see here, there's a yellow box that says these details need reviewing. You can mark them as correct or search by title on Google Scholar. And you can see there's lots of wording handles, and those will pull through into your referencing and citations if you don't correct them. So it's important to just correct that. And then as you can see, there's no information about what journal that's in. So you can open the PDF and have a look and then fill in the details based on the information that's provided in the PDF. So it's just important to keep those details up to date. I'm just going to take the opportunity now and give you the opportunity to ask any questions if this is making sense so far, and if you want to find out more about how to add details to Mendeley. Okay, I can't see anybody typing in the chat box, so I will continue, but please feel free to jump in with questions whenever. Okay, so it's important to check your details of the different sources that you're adding, but you can also annotate them. So as you can see here on the left hand side of this window, there's a PDF that's open in the display, and then the details about what that journal article is in the right hand side there in the details. You can change the details using this tab here. So it says details at the top, but the tab underneath it says notes, and that's where you can add notes about the content of the article, so you can take notes for yourself and write anything you want to. There are also the options to watch different folders. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have a folder where you tend to save everything, or even ones where you might save them for different assignments, different modules, you can select multiple folders and have them as watched folders. So anytime that you save anything new to it, Mendeley will pull that information through into its library for you. So you don't need to manually go through and drag and drop or pull things in or add anything. It will do that for you. So that's really handy. And you do that by clicking on add files and then watch folder, and then you select within your options which folders you want it to watch for you. You can also attach files to existing records. So if, for example, you have a record that you've pulled through from a database that doesn't have a PDF attached to it because you weren't sure if that was going to be useful for you. So you've added it to your library just to have a record of it, and then you go back later and decide, actually, that is a good looking journal article, I'm going to save that. You can save that in your folder, and you can go to the record in your Mendeley and add the PDF of the file to the existing record that you have. You do that by going to the record details on the right hand bar, and there's a section called files, as you can see circled at the bottom there. If you click on add file, it will open an option for you to attach the file, and you can attach the right one. That's particularly useful, I think, when you might have the record of an ebook and the way that the book is ordered, or like the way that the files are presented online, might be as 10 different PDFs. So you can save each one separately, and then you can add it to you can add the full set to that one record about the ebook. So you don't just have to have one PDF. Another option for exporting from online databases is using the web plugin. So I've mentioned how you use the web, how you install the web plugin. You do that by downloading the software from the Mendeley website. If you are then on, for example, this is PubMed, you can click the button at the top of your browser, and it will offer you the options about which PDFs you want to download and which ones you want to add to your library. So that is another way of doing it that's separate to and different to doing it as a RIS file. They both work equally well most of the time. So as I've mentioned, with the web importer, you can also import a website. So you would click again the web importer button, and it opens this up for you, and you can choose the reference type. So in this case, it's a web page. You can make sure that the details of the title of the page are right. That's usually been pulled through, but sometimes it's not. And you can, if possible, add details of the authors. So it doesn't always know where to be looking for the information, so you need to give it a helping hand and tell it where to put the information. So as I've mentioned, you might need to edit the website record. You can do that either in the web importer, or you can go into Mendeley Desktop and correct it and make sure everything's accurate. So for creating citations in Word, so the previous section was about how to get stuff into Mendeley. This section is about getting stuff out of Mendeley when you're using it for assignments. As I've mentioned, you need to install the Microsoft plugin. So you do that by going into the desktop, Mendeley Desktop, and clicking install the plugin. Once you've done that, this is what it looks like in Microsoft Word. So as you can see, I've crossed through a section here. You don't use the citations and bibliography tool, you use the Mendeley tool for this, which is to the left of it, the Mendeley Citomatic. And you click insert citation to insert a citation. So it's pulling through all the information, the database that's in your Mendeley library. You need to move your cursor to where you want to insert a citation. So make sure that your little cursor is flashing in the right place. When you click insert citation, you then got the option to search for an author name or a title of something even. So for example, you typed Borden in here, it will bring you up every record you've got in your library that's been authored by Borden. And then you'd select the right one and click OK, and it will automatically pull it in. So for example, it says, here is one example citation, brackets, these authors in this year. And that's the information that it had pulled through for you. And every time you do that, a little record is created in the back end of Mendeley and Microsoft Word, and it's just holding on to those different citations so that when you go to insert your bibliography, everything you have cited will be automatically generating a reference for you for your reference list, which is super, super handy. So it looks similar on a Mac operating system as it does to Word, but the toolbar is slightly different, so it looks like this, but essentially does the same thing. And you get to it by clicking the button next to where it says Window at the top toolbar, and then Mendeley, and then insert or edit citation. You can also choose to edit your citation. So by default, it will give you the name of the author or authors and the year of publication, but you can get it to add a page number. So where you use a direct quote in speech marks, you should provide, where possible, where there is one, a page number. And to add that in, you can click edit citation and then fill in the details where there's the page, where it says where I want you to put the page in. And then if you click OK, that will be pulled in for you. And then once you've finished with your assignment, or as you go along, you can create a section at the bottom of your piece of work. If you click Insert Bibliography, it will give you an automatically generated list of the references that you have cited. And it will pull those through in whatever referencing style you've set. So as you can see in the screenshot here, the style is American Psychology Association. So that's APA referencing style. But you can change it, as I'll show you in a sec. So to change the citation style, you go to where it says Style and the drop-down menu. You can set it to any of the ones that are automatically present in that list. There are also more styles that you can select. So at the bottom there, it says More Styles. You can use that to use the Queen Margaret University referencing style. So here, for example, it does come up in the list because this is a screenshot of my version of Microsoft Word and I've already set it up. But if you click on More Styles and search for Queen Margaret University, Harvard, it will pull that referencing style through for you. Now, like I say, it's not completely comprehensive because there are lots and lots and lots of different examples within Write and Cite about how to cite different sources, but the basics are there, so it should be fine for books, journals and websites. But you might need to do some more tweaking and just make sure that it is in line with everything that is required of you for the QMU style of Harvard. So some extra features that I think are particularly useful. You can search in records and their attached files. So if you wanted to search for example, here, social networks, if you pop that in speech marks, it will find you every example where a journal article or a book chapter or whatever you've pulled in talks about social networks. So that's really handy for searching through what you've already got and seeing if you've got enough resources about something, if you might need to go and do some more searching on databases or in journals for useful resources. It's also useful for comparing things across different files, for seeing, like if you wanted to follow up a reference of something, you can search in the PDF itself. It's not just the details of the document metadata that you're searching, it does search the whole text of any files that are attached to it. So that's really useful and quite a powerful tool. As I mentioned earlier, you can take notes as you go along, and you can also add little sticky notes, which is quite a nice function, and they expand and shrink. So where there's a great big yellow sticky note here, there's a little icon above it. If you click on that, it shrinks and minimizes the sticky note for you. But you can take notes as you're reading. You can highlight as well the text itself. You can highlight as lines of text, or you can highlight whole boxes. If there's a particularly useful image, for example, you can get it to highlight. You can highlight in about 6 different colours, which I really like when I'm, for example, highlighting different things, different topics, or things that I might want to use in different parts of my assignment. So if I wanted to talk about some things and reference some arguments in the body of the text, and then like in my literature review section, and then I wanted to reference another bit in a discussion, I can highlight them in different colours so that I know where I'm using them. The notes field is searchable, which is really useful. So I can search for when I have talked about particular things or what I've mentioned. So if I know that I use a particular word to I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example now. So if I wanted to search for every time that I've said that that something is reliable or valid or high quality, I can search for that, my opinions about these particular pieces of work. The annotations themselves, the little sticky notes, aren't searchable, so just bear in mind that if you want to use search for anything, then the notes field is useful. The annotations function with the sticky notes is less useful for that. You can also organise things into folders. So like I mentioned, you can add folders, create folders for different assignments or pieces of work. You can also make these as groups. So if you were working together as a group on something, you can share a folder between you and put in shared resources that you wanted to talk about. You can annotate them together and use it as a collaborative research tool, which is quite handy. That works both on the desktop version and on the web view. So this is a screenshot of what it looks like to be in a group on the web version. It's also useful to be able to find and merge duplicate records. So if you are searching for things and saving, for example, RIS files and sets of lots of references on one database, and you can then go and do it on another one and then pull it all in together, rather than having lots of repeated records of the same article, you can check for duplicates and it will identify where possible. It's not completely comprehensive, but you can get it to find duplicates for you and just tidy that up a bit. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you do something like a systematic review using Mendeley, because it's not quite powerful enough, but it is very, very useful if you're just doing something like an assignment or an essay. And it is quite comprehensive. It's just not, I would say, kind of scientifically robust enough for systematic reviewing. So, are there any questions that you'd like to ask about how to use Mendeley, or what it can be handy for, or anything you can think of, really? Okay, so this is a question about which is better, RefWorks or Mendeley. They are very, very similar. I personally prefer Mendeley, but that's because I've been using it for 12 years, so I'm more familiar with it. I can tell you that I'm better at supporting on Mendeley because of how familiar I am with it, but QMU does support both. We are having problems with RefWorks currently because we're updating from the legacy version to the new version, and they are having problems with supporting us in updating the QMU referencing style, whereas we've got a bit more control over it because it's open source with Mendeley, so we can do what we're able to. So politically, I would say Mendeley, but they are both very functional. RefWorks is quite powerful for deduplicating. So if you're doing something that is a hard science, that might be useful for you. But there are the tools like annotating and doing notes and highlighting, I find particularly useful with Mendeley. And also there are other ways of exporting references. So if you would go into the desktop version of Mendeley and right click a resource, you can get it to export a citation, and you can just paste it in to whatever you're doing, whether that's like a presentation or a Word document or something. So as well as the plugin, there are other ways of getting references out of Mendeley, which I don't think there are in RefWorks. So it's just got a bit more functionality, I think. Does that answer your question? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about how Mendeley works, or to just go back over anything in particular? Okey-doke. Well, I won't keep you. As I've said, I've recorded this section so I can put it online and can email you with the link to that so that you can go back to it. If you need any help with anything, if you do decide to use Mendeley, then please feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is lsmith1@qmu.ac.uk, or you can find my details on the library website. All your librarians can help you with this. So please feel free to make use of us, ask questions, get in touch. Okay, so I'm going to end this session. Yes, I will make the PowerPoint available on, what I'll do is I'll put it on the Mendeley, the referencing LibGuide, and I'll email everyone with a link to this video and a link to the PowerPoint. Okay. You're welcome. Thanks very much for coming. No worries. Bye then.